Okay. All right. So you're all set. Now, just putting everything together so that it kind of it gels, and there is some sort of reference to what is set in your exams and what those folders contain. Some of the, and you mentioned correctly the folder that has complementary books, what those are for. I'm sure the main book which we've been referring to, the training guide, is substantial enough and it's enough headache. So you don't want to add to that. And so many pages in the other books that are in your box. So let me just give you an idea on what they contain and why we have put them for you. Now, generally, any other instructor that I know of, they don't put any material in the folders that is not part of the CIRS program, is not part of the exam, just so that they feel that, and I guess they're right in the sense that they don't want to cause confusion. But I'm more of a kind of, just putting something that could be a reference that you can use later when you are actually doing your own research work. And so I don't want to, I just want to separate it so that we don't actually give a cause for any confusions. So let's just quickly review these folders. The final exams, whenever you're ready, you feel comfortable that you have scored good enough in your practice tests that you can actually go and attempt the exams. That's when you should click on this folder to find the final exams. Um, did you, Kristen or Randy, did any one of you get a chance to log into the practice tests just to check it out?
I did. I did the first module without reading anything. I wanted to see how I would do, and I need
Yeah,
to revisit the first thing. So I decided I was going to reread a few things before I try again.
that's fine, but at least you were able to log in and you
Yeah.
saw, the questions. Okay.
Yeah, it's like I
So,
logged in just fine. I found everything, the questions. It told me what I missed, how many I got right, wrong, and partially correct, and that was really helpful to know for where do I need to focus going forward. So that was helpful.
yeah, that's good because that's was the idea. I just wanted to make sure that first of all you're able to get into those practice test exam. Now this one I have opened. This one has the final exams in it. Yeah. So Randy, the one that you get to test as a member or whatever gives you access to those questions, that's Randy asking me something, Tristan. Um, I know you'll score really well. That's, some of the questions, or you could say that they're not as updated because your main platform is going to be class marker. So, and I have no doubt you'll score really well in the practice. So you can actually look up the practice tests as your basis for getting ready for the final exams. That's my recommendation. I would just count on the ones that I've given you rather than what's actually there on the dashboard side. Uh, and though that is connected to our web portal. So that's just a suggestion. Now, in the finals, you could see the pattern is or how it's laid out is slightly different. Like it is arranged with the um, Yeah, so everything is the same except that when you click on this link, you will get connected to the final exams only. And the final exams have given you 4 attempts for each module, which means that generally where, there were supposed to be 3 attempts. Now I have added one extra attempt on my own so that now you've got 4 attempts you can do before the final exams are, you could say that they're no longer available. That's how the AOFIRS has set them. So maximum attempts are 4. But let's suppose you don't pass in all 4 attempts. Then you can always buy the exam. I think it's 20 or $25, and that will give you another 3 attempts. And so the cycle continues. We give the the first 4 attempts complimentary to our students. But then, this third party platform charges us. So we sort of pass that cost over to students if they choose to reattempt them after all the complimentary attempts are exhausted. So that's the thing that you have to remember. And what you see over here is the exact same information, except that it is laid out differently. The time is given here, the number of questions are given. So in module 1, you have 14 questions and the time is 28 minutes. And same thing with the module 2. You will click on these links to get into the same window that you see as set in the test Q&As. So there will be no confusion. You will be confident. The other thing, yeah, there are actually total of 90 questions if you decide to give all of these in one go. Total of 90 questions and 188 minutes. Then let's look at the other folders now. Very good. Then we have practice exams. You've seen this one, your training guide, class notes. Remember those notepad practice queries that we used to do? I've placed all of them in here. So that's more like a reference, a revision, if you like. Class schedule, course syllabus, we don't have to worry about. This is what Kristen, you were asking, ebooks complimentary. Now, what are these books about and how would they help you? Uh, One of the books, which is online investigative research training, these are study notes. It's a book, it's a substantial size. I think it's about almost the same size as the CIRS training book, which means about close to 500 pages or so. Now, this book is not generally we sell it online. This is the book I wrote on online investigative research. And the entire book itself is independent of CIRS exam or CIRS training guide. What it is for anyone who is planning to get into background checks, due diligence, investigations of any sorts, verifications of videos, and things of that nature. So the online investigative research guide is a reference which is given to you complimentary by me personally. You wouldn't get it otherwise. This is something that you can later on, if you feel that you have time, you can just browse through and look at your topics, which at times could be more important because say something to do with email verifications, or where you want to track the source or the sender who's even someone who's stalking, or sort of what do they call it? There's a word for it, trolling. Yeah. So you can actually use some of the information that is set in that book exclusively on this topic of email verification. And so it continues. So if something that you need to investigate and to dig deep, or to find a source, or to verify, you can use it as a reference. So nothing to do with CIRS. Now, anyone who is to learn about online investigative research as a subject are best advised to do their CIRS credentials first, or at least do the module 2 first part, where the query search is one element or one of the major skills that would go a long way if you want to transition to online investigative research as a service or as a business. Okay. So that's where you can step up a little, or go a little further from CIRS to the next level. That could be another reason why this might help. Then we've got these three books, which is actually coming from a source that has to do with gathering news, with some of the use cases, some of the real experiences, on the ground experiences of those that collect information as a journalist, or as anyone who's actually a reporter or writer. So what it would do, or the details that it contains, is again nothing to do with CIRS, but more of interesting topics and real life situations where the information needed to be verified, and some of the ways in which it is done through practical or hands-on, on the ground crew, or anyone who's doing, even the citizen journalists today might find it interesting. So that's why the data journalism handbook, the verification handbook, which is of two different kinds. There is 2 and 3. So there was another one, but I didn't put it in there. It was too basic. So these two are something that might interest you. And it's not boring at all. It's very engaging and interesting. The data journalism book, on the other hand, is slightly more detailed. So anyway, it's for you to discover as if it is a subject of your interest, and not that it is going to impact or your learning for CIRS exam, or for the training that we did with the material that we put in your folders for the CIRS related course material. You don't really want to mix it, or want to even focus on it, or get distracted. This could be something that might be distraction. So at the time where you are preparing for CRS, just focus on the training guide, and focus on whatever we've learned, go through the recordings, and obviously that pattern which I have introduced for you to do your preparation is going to remain intact, and would have again nothing to do with complementary books. Then we have PowerPoints. You have the PDFs for PowerPoints. If you'd like, you can use it as a reference. Um, However, it's still bullet points, and covers, or gives you, or shapes up rather, your preparation for the CIRS, which means that it is actually pointing you to some of the topics or important bullet points and notes, and some examples, and with along with the illustration that you see, even though they're most of them are coming from the book itself, but it could be a good reference for preparing for your CIRs. So those are the PowerPoints. Recordings, you know what those are. Mm, And then guess what? I also placed recordings from the previous session I took. Um, that was for batch 1190, the one that was earlier. Um, and it has some of the recordings that you can compare, use. You can pretty much find perhaps few more interesting things that I may not have discussed. Not that I missed out anything for the exams, but like we talk about, or the way in which things are explained, perhaps you can, look at the previous recordings as well. It'll just pad up or complement our current recordings. So I've placed it there also. Generally, we don't do that. So one of the things I've done is that I've placed these recordings. I have added complementary ebooks. Then you see another folder that says research information references. Now, I just want you to understand, or perhaps reveal a secret about how the courses are designed and how some of the books are set or they're compiled. The training guide, which is the main book, it contains different topics, as you know, and some of the topics might relate to each other or may be easy to put together as if they're giving or they represent a flow of an idea or something that is more specific to the needs of certain students who are only interested in doing web searches. Like they're more interested in building search queries. Nothing else is as important. So, what we did is we pulled that information from the training guide and sort of compiled it and made it into another book. The good thing is that whatever I'm going to refer to right now with two additional books, they're all coming from the training guide. So training guide is like a Bible. It's like it contains everything. It's an encyclopedia of or the basis of our structured courses, even for short courses. So for some of you that might be interested in collection of specific type of information, which is actually compiled edition of those topics, is contained in one of these books. So when I am pointing to this folder, you could see that there is another book. It's called Research Information. I'm going to have to look for the password first. There's a password here. It was something we put together for a boot camp. So that's how the password is like. So if I click on this to open it and show you, this is the book that contains the information like, for those that are looking for sourcing of information, um, verification of, some of the topics, all of these are actually in your training guide. Internet information types, it is actually one of the topics or chapters. Internet information resources, internet information verification, challenges, list of specialized search engines, list of internet information verification tools. Now, with the exception of the last one or the last two, everything else is actually directly pulled from the training guide. And what is left, which is list of specialized search engines and list of internet information verification. These two are references to the additional booklets that we created as complementary lists that would come in handy when you're looking for, specialized search engines, portals, or when you're looking for specialized tools that would help you to not only search for info, but also for verification of that information. So those booklets I'm going to show you a little later, but here the one that you're looking at is a compilation of all of that. And Nothing is going to be unfamiliar when you look at the chapters and topics. They're exactly the same as they are set in your training guide. All of these. You have seen all of these. These are all in training guide. Now, at the very end, there is this references like specialized search engines. So academic, science related, arts, books, journals, all of these are listed here. One of the things that I would tell you about these links is that they're slightly older ones. We have the new list that we are compiling, which is actually going to be an upgrade to, and we do that every 3 to 4 months to sort out, test, and if required, add something new and replace what is not working. So that part is coming up. It's not ready yet. It's coming close to getting finished. So that's going to be our spring edition, which is overdue, and it's going to come very, very soon. However, I would assume that most of these should work okay. And then this is the specialized search engine, and then there were tools like data scraping tools, okay, um, data mining tools, forensic and investigative reporting tool. This part would connect to online investigative research and could be really helpful when you are looking for quick references to or a guide that would allow you to click quickly to take you to that specific tool or utilities. Anyway, this is one book, which is a reference again, and nothing to do with your CIRS program. It is just something that you can actually look into without going through the other 500 pages of that big book of training guide. This could come in handy. You're being looking for specific information sources. Then we have another see these resource reference booklets. These booklets are two of which I've shown you in the previous one, information reference. These resource booklets are actually have the material that's now placed in one place in research information reference book. So if you want these separate, like online verification tools, again, I need the password. These passwords are trackable, by the way, just so you know. Like the PDF allows us to view through registered emails, which is your emails when you registered with us for the program. We keep them as something that sort of keeps a tab on whether some of our copyrighted material is circulating without permission. And so it has that ability to do that. So what happens is that these passwords are issued to your batch only, and your emails are connected to it. Not that we'd like to see who's opened it or closed it, but if we see an unusual activity of something circulating with multiple accesses to with the same password, we have so we don't talk about this, but I'm just letting you know that this is something that we finally ended up doing not too long ago. Anyway, so online investigative tools, if I click on this one, as an example, what you will discover is another book. It's a booklet, I'm not sure how many pages, but see this one, Web Content Verification Tools Directory, reference material for online research. Whatever is contained in this booklet is now being updated, and actually this information is part of your previous book, which is information sourcing, the one we looked at just before this one. So what this has is tools for forensic investigation, reputation management tools, and so on and so forth. So this is another booklet. It is got 91 pages. Similarly, you've got others which are um, research links directly. By the way, research links directory is too dynamic. It just keeps changing a lot. So these are just randomized links, more like a directory, which is um, you know um, is organized according to different topics or according to um, the list of areas of finding information. Um, Let me open it. I haven't seen it for a while. This has got more than 10,000 records in it. And these are all put inside of this book. And we don't have the ability to keep updating or keep up with what is being dropped or what is changed. Some of the domains may not be updated. So I wouldn't recommend this as some, I mean, you'll find a lot of information in there, some of which may not be actually working. So I'm letting you know ahead of time. Like this one, what you will find, okay, intergovernmental organizations, environment programs, fisheries organization, international migration data, and so on and so forth. Something that you may be interested in or may not be. Like research journals, this could be interesting or something that you can actually look for. Like agriculture and foods. If I click on this, I get these lists. Okay, and they're all clickable. That's the good thing. So you can check instantly. It's got 10,000 records, so a lot of material in there. Okay, so this is again another reference booklet. Now, this part is not captured in the information sourcing guide, which is the one that we did earlier. So what is in there in the information sourcing, I'm going to let you know. There's another booklet which has information that is also part of the information sourcing, but this one is not. So specifically, this could be something that you may want to look up for the links and see if they're still operational or not, because it's not as up to date. Then there is the last one. This is most important. This is what we focus on these days. We are talking about artificial intelligence. A lot more search engines that are using AI has come up. The market is really heating up. A lot of different versions of AIs are integrating in their searches that specific tool. Now, I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, but what has happened is the chat GPT or something similar to that is actually coming from a generic program which is in the public domain these days. It's called open source software, open source that anyone can use and use it as a ground for building something on top, um, with different variations of how you can actually add more script or more program to it or integrate more APIs, and that's open source program. So this is the last one. By the way, don't worry about what gets finished today for finishing up the few topics that we we needed to do, because I have the video that I'm going to give you. This information is more important because I have no recording of what I am explaining right now from before. So you may find this more useful in a more hands-on way. That's why I'm explaining it. Now, the last one is search engines. This, I don't know if you saw or not, but this list is getting not only updated, but you will be finding something really interesting, some additional search engines that we call AI related. That's going to be added to it in this. And by the way, this part is also in the information sourcing book, which is going to allow you to actually visit this booklet and the specialize and the utilities and tools for verification. Both booklets would their material would be in the compiled in that larger book. So you see, all these are search engine portals. The title itself is not explaining specifically if it is all these just search engines, or there is more variants of sourcing besides the search engine, like specialized databases, some specialized portals. Has any one of you looked at a source which we call open corporates? If you're interested in collecting business intelligence, especially you, Randy, have you had the opportunity to look up open corporates by any chance? Or
No,
ICIJ
no, I
database?
have,
Hmm?
no, I have, been
You
through
have
that.
not. Yeah. Okay, what open corporates allows you is to look up the information about businesses, their board of directors, when they were established, who the members are, if it is an organization, like there is a lot of detail in there. That information is used by journalists quite often for quick checks. They don't go to LexisNexis every time. They don't go to private businesses, information databases, especially related to company operations. So what they do is they go to open corporates. Open corporates is like somebody in the organization um, giving the information or giving out some of the major business related information to a public database as volunteers. So it is kind of a wiki, you may say, of the businesses, and it's globally acknowledged as a great resource. A lot of people don't know about it because, but anyone in the journalist circle or whoever are, avid writers or contributors to writing something on certain on specifically on corporate and companies, they know of this. So I would say that look it up. It's called opencorporates.com. And then there is ICIJ, which is used to find the hidden assets which are offshore in trust companies. It creates a map of connection between those that a lot of times uh, people that are, corrupt politicians or someone who is going through divorce and trying to discover some hidden assets offshore, they use that database. That's called ICIJ database. So anyway, this information or this booklet is got a lot of links, some of which you will discover um, are the ones that you would just you know think that how come you never knew about them. They'll come to you as a surprise. Anyway, so let's just go back to the folders again, and see where we are. So we've looked at the resources or reference booklets. Rules, policies, not interested. Now, the last one that I have is WS training guide, which similar to the book, like research information reference or online investigative reference, WS training guide is again something that has material extracted or taken from the main training guide. So what this contains is that it has some of the, I don't know why we put this one here. I'll just leave it. But this is the one I'm talking about. And this is actually meant to be used by those that are only interested in learning, as I told you, they're only interested in learning search queries. So this book is for them, and there used to be a course we were offering, and we'll probably offer this summer also, hands-on workshops and something that would be only teaching and talking about building the search queries. So let me just take the password. Just open this one. Okay, so it opened up. It's not secured. Should be secured. Anyway, so web search methods and techniques in professional online search and research. This has all the topics. First of all the topics are taken from the training guide. Secondly, it has topics that are more focused on, building search queries and discusses concepts which you have learned already: web pages, HTML, query foundations, search engine, textual database, and query recognition. All these chapters are coming from module 2. See, keywords and search phrases, basic search operations. So if you look at this book, you are not don't get confused, because these are exactly same topics, and even the chapter names and the topics description are exactly the same as you would find, or the index would be the same as you would see in the training guide. So this is when you are only want to open up something which is covering module 2, essential elements for online research. You can use this book as a reference. Um, don't need to go through the training guide, the whole thing. Okay, so that's all. Nothing more that I have to discuss in here. That's it. So, Kristen, now it's all clear, and I'm glad I did this, recorded this, because now I have something I can give to the students, at least just to describe to them all these folders, what they have in there. That was a mystery and something that could cause a confusion. All right. So, next, I'm going to finish up a little bit on the internet law, and also I want to discuss these case laws or case studies. And like I said, we don't have a lot of time to finish up all of these use cases. Generally, I would just do one or two, but even for that, I don't know if we'll be able to finish. And like I said, I have the link here in the where is that link? I have the link for the recording that covers whatever is left over. So you won't miss anything. Let's just take a break right now. I'll take about 10-15 minutes, and we'll try to finish as much as we can. I thought you might have questions, or if you had anything that you thought might be something that you would need me for. Today is a good day. to discuss it. Think about it, and if anything comes to mind, I'm here today, and I'm available throughout this entire week, um, to actually not only be able to correspond, but if there is a need for a quick Zoom connect of 15, 20 minutes for anything really important you need to discuss, I'll be able to manage it if we can coordinate that time. But week after this, towards the end or the last week of February, um, I'll be traveling quite a bit. So anyway, I'll see you in 10 minutes or so. See you shortly. Okay, I'm back. Let's continue. Going to use the slides here. Let's look at copyrights. Now, for the copyrights, the owners, what are the owners' rights? Um, they can reproduce the work. They have a right to derivative work. They have the right to distribution, right for the public display, public performance, if it is an artwork. Okay. So all of these are the owner's rights, but there is this element of infringement when the infringement or when the act of legal obligations and responsibility, as the law has put it, for the copyrights to be considered as infringed. Okay. There is something called direct infringement. There is contributory and vicarious liability or vicarious infringement. Just remember the terms, because they might be something that you would be tested on when they would put those use cases, or where you have to answer for a situation that they would be describing in the question. A direct infringement is outright copying somebody's intellectual property. That's direct infringement. Then, and it's nothing complicated about that. If the person who is responsible for an infringement is directly doing something knowingly that it is intellectual property, and under the terms and conditions of the use, they are not complying with it, they would basically be causing a direct infringement. Then we have contributory. Contributory means where one party who is the infringee, who is the infringer, um, infringer being who is the one that is basically responsible for making that copy of something. That person is the infringer, and that infringer might not be directly copying something, but indirectly knowing with the knowledge that it could be an IP issue, which is intellectual property, would use somebody's work, but not directly copying it, but indirectly procuring it from a third party. So that is contributing or contributory infringement. The liability for or the damages, including punitive damages, are the highest when it is proven to be a direct infringement. A less of a cause of liability, and the amount of liability is attributed to the contributory infringer compared to direct infringement. And then there is vicarious liability. Vicarious means that, the work is circulating around with the knowledge that it is procured or it is obtained through consent of someone who is the um, actual producer or the owner of that work, or whosoever work is being infringed upon is a fact which is not known to a third party on account of its assumption that it is already been uh, or given permission to be reproduced. So that is vicarious liability. And more than a few people might be involved in this, where one party who is the direct infringer may pass it on to the second person and the third and so on. So that is vicarious liability. And the element of obligation or the element of law which is going to be the factor to be considered is how much knowledge, or whether that person who is the infringer has used caution, or has used common sense, or it's used its own resources to verify if the work is actually been given permission to be reproduced or not. So those are some of the elements which the vicarious liability would hold as something that can be contested in the court of law, but uh, the the damages may not be as high as those that may be caused by contributory infringement or direct infringement. Okay, so that's how these three are kind of differentiated when it comes to copyright infringements. Then we have got internet related infringement. piracy, just it's a direct infringement. That's piracy. Just not only copying the work, but taking advantage of it or selling it or having a commercial value that's been attributed to the factor of piracy of something. So piracy is direct infringement. Then there is something called caching, which technically used to be and still is in the law. They have used the term caching as type of infringement only because caching means copying of something and temporarily holding it in the database to be accessed later on, as if these are, virtual copies of something. But because how the internet works, it uses the caching technology and by permission to place something in its public database as pages to be accessed. This is the first stop, or caching is what the search engines do first before that those pages are available for the users to access. So that is caching, and because of certain decisions that are upheld for anyone contesting caching as an infringement, and it has gone um, into the public domain as a technology rather than an infringement itself. It is very hard to sue someone for caching of pages. Yeah. Um, but there are technicalities to caching. So at least you get to understand what caching means from the technical perspective. It's just copying a code or something and held temporary. Then we've got page linking as part of the infringement that you get to see on pages that are displayed. The characteristics or elements of how the infringing might be something that you can be sued for. One of them is called deep linking. Deep linking is when you are connecting your or when you have on the pages any kind of information, could be the content, the textual content, could be the images or multimedia files, but those are basically connected to or are obtaining something from a third party site, which means that it is not the original material produced from within, but rather something that is displayed on the site as if it is simulating or it is giving a view to the user that it is internally displayed, or it is in the database of that server itself where the website is being hosted. Then we've got inline linking. Inline linking simply means clicking on the links and going to somebody else's website, but the materials such as images would be showing on the same website, except that by clicking on it and finding more info or going to the next page is not actually being obtained from the links connected to the same domain, but it is breaking out of that domain and taking someone onto another website. So that is inline linking. Then we've got framing. Framing means that there is a technology which sort of allows you to create an area on the web page that makes the user look at it as if it is actually part of the same domain, but it has within that frame a dynamic code which basically is displaying everything that is connected or is being run on another website, and whatever changes are done on the other website, even if the images are changing or if the video such as in YouTube is actually displaying within the frame, and it makes the frame sort of blends it or makes it looks like as if it is the same website because of the frame having the same color, or it has the same look to sort of give an idea that it is the property of that specific page or that domain where it's being displayed. But whatever is held inside of the frame is dynamic, meaning that it changes with whenever something changes on the other side or on a third party's domain. Like if you're displaying the YouTube video within the frame that you have created, and something changes on YouTube for this video, um, it is going to appear and it is going to display within the frame with the updated or the changed material that is uh, uh, only going to display and play in that frame. So the frame is something that is created by the programmer, and the links or the connectivity with the third party site is dynamic. And the only reason why the main reason when they create the frame is not to disturb everything else around it. That could be the HTML page, but whatever changes happen are only going to happen in that area that is created only for something to be moving or having the dynamic characteristics. Linking to infringing work means that if it is a link which is taking you to an illegal site, or a site where you see how people do funnel marketing. I don't know if you know funnel marketing, but what it means is that it leads you to another site, and the other site would lead you to yet another site. So basically you are creating a funnel that eventually takes you to a totally different website, or it is a link which is meant to go to sites which have something that you have no knowledge of, or something that appears as new, or is not the same of what you have clicked on. So that is linking to infringing work. They call it infringing work if it is a piracy site. If it is not, then linking itself to the funnel, it can also be considered as infringement of intellectual property, and it is part of the copyrights which can be contested. Then we've got certain material that you may have a public license available, or something that allows you to, sometimes you can copy the work, sometimes you can reuse the work, sometimes you can add to that work, sometimes it is an open source code which is held in public domain intentionally for someone to reuse. All of those are actually given a licensure, a license which is called a public license. But the public license itself has certain conditions, and it depends on what type of public license it is. Um, it's the fair use, or it's GNU and Creative Commons. These are just some of the ways in which different licensing bodies have been established that kind of regulates uh, or identifies with the particular type of licensing in the public domain. We have in the I think we have it somewhere towards the end. See, this is kind of a public license. Um, to make it easier for someone to recognize what kind of public license it is, sometimes they have these different icons that tells you what you are able to do with that. Copy and publish, for instance, um, all of these that are ticked as part of the Creative Commons is ticked uh, with the check marks over here. Um, this would mean you have to give attributes. You can use the work commercially. You can modify and adopt the original work, and all of these different types of licenses are given the name like attribution required, commercial use, modify and adapt. All of these are different ways in which the Creative Commons licenses, as an example, are given these icons to look for as the indicators or main indicators of what is allowed and what is not. So this is more like a reference chart. Same way GNU is another type of license commonly used for software, open source software, and that would also have a chart similar to this. But as far as we have to know, or as much as we need to know, we can just look at what is allowed under these licenses. The GPL, general public license, or then LGPL is a large general public licensing. It is telling you what is the differentiator between the two. Must distribute license with source, cannot use contributor's name to endorse. There has to be notification for changed files, and so on and so forth. So these requirements are mostly for softwares. Now, slender and liable, few more things. Then let's look at this one. Okay, trademarks. After the copyrights, trademarks needs to be understood in terms of what could be the infringing factors of trademark, or how the law looks at the trademark as being infringed and comes up with liability or damages that could be ordered by the court. Some of the factors that will determine if the trademark is infringed are listed here. First thing is the similarity in the overall impression created by the two marks. Now, here the marks, and I think, I don't know, for now, let's just assume that I'm just going to talk about the trademarks such as logos or the design work. We're not talking about the word marks. So if it is a trademark that has a design or something that needs to be differentiated with any other mark, that could be the main factor. It is the perception for the consumer. In the eyes of consumers, there should be no cause for confusion on account of that mark. That is the criteria. And second thing, the products that you are using for that mark for should not be the similar or same product, like shoes, and another company is making soles for the shoes. That should be factor that would give rise to the claim from the claimant for infringement of trademark. But if it is shoes versus coffee company or a food company, then there is this differentiation that could nearly save you, from that accusation or that claim. Then the strength of plaintiff's mark, which means how long has that mark been around. Even if it is not registered with the trademark authority and somebody has been in business long enough using some certain slogan or certain marks that the consumers identify with the product only because it has been around for a longer period of time, and that there has been a commercial value attached to it, where something is being sold over a number of years, and the consumer recognizes it with that branding or with that word mark or that design mark. That could be another sort of criteria, okay, for someone to claim it or someone to defend it when anybody else who has come brand new in the market and just filed for a trademark, the fact that they have been able to file it is not enough reason for that mark to exist, only because the contestant or anyone else who has not registered it has been around for a long time And again, it is the consumers that would be considered as having the having the concept or having the perception that it is a mark they can relate to for that product or service. Therefore, consumers recognition of the mark is more important, even if that mark is not a registered trademark. You have to remember this part. Um, any evidence of actual confusion by the consumers, where there is a consumer who, let's say, comes to our website, as an example, as Association of Internet or AOFIRS, and makes a mistake of going to another platform, which is AOIRS. Um, AOIRS is, I think, Association of Internet Researchers versus Association of Internet Research Specialists. So there could be a bit of a friction there only when somebody, as a claimant, would say that some of our subscribers are mistaking that for our platform, and they're going to AFIRS instead, and they're subscribing to or taking memberships there. So there should be no confusion in the eyes of consumers. That is priority number one. And they have to prove it. And the proof would be to gather that information from the consumer, taking an undertaking from someone who by mistake is being directed or is going to the wrong website because of similarities. The intent of the defendant in adopting its mark. So if it is done by design, like some people would use Nike brand by just changing a little bit on the logo, or intentionally trying to make a business out of it, taking advantage of a famous brand and producing low quality alternatives or something that is a somewhat similar product but not the same. So that would mean the intent of someone who has intentionally created that product and made that logo to confuse the consumer would show the intent, okay, of that person. So that is another factor. The physical proximity of the goods in the retail market. This is another factor. Um, in the retail market, for example, there could be a product which may not be easy to differentiate because it has other similar products that look somewhat the same, and they would have to make a choice by just looking at something. But let's say if somebody is looking for certifications, as an example, and they would go to our website and be well informed about what are these courses for, and would have to make a judgment based on their own due diligence and their own specifics that they find in the certification, versus they go to another website, which is CIR, for instance, Certified Internet Researchers. That is another credentials. It has nothing to do with AOFIRS, but let's suppose the consumer makes a mistake uh, by taking up the courses, which are two different kinds and serves two different purposes. Then this is not the same as products proximity, meaning that just look and view of something that is physically or tangible that one can get confused with just because they're one next to another would not be the same or the same level of confusion as it would be with the services offered by two different types of credentials, which is got a lot of information about it, and the consumers can make um, well-informed choices. So that's what it means. The degree of care likely to be exercised by the consumer. Again, it sort of backs up everything before, as I mentioned. Degree of care meaning that the consumer is not considered to be wise enough or intelligent enough, or may, on the other side, be considered as more vulnerable in getting deceived by the trademarks or anything offered under a branding which looks similar. So in that case, the consumer is supposed to uh, give a statement, or would have to have the degree of confusion which ordinarily a common person with average or even less than average intelligence should be able to make an informed choice. So if there is a higher degree of likelihood of consumer to get confused, that could be another factor. So what happens is that the plaintiff or anyone who's filing a claim for IP would have to prove that in the eyes of a common consumer or an average consumer, there should be no confusion, right? Um, and then we've got the and by the way, see, when this happens, it impacts, or the claim that the plaintiff would file is for damages that could be considered as blurring of the goodwill or tarnishing of the goodwill. Blurring of the goodwill means that it is somewhat similar, but not that dissimilar that the consumer would be able to differentiate much, except that it is going to be something which might have a subtle difference in making the choice between the original product and the other one. So the quality is compromised, eh? But tarnishing means is outright copying something, which means that intentionally the words, if it is Nike, the E might be written slightly differently, or that mark or the check mark for Nike may not be um, designed properly, or not exactly the same, but looks similar. So that could actually tarnish the goodwill, which means the quality is totally compromised and the faith of the consumer is impacted that they have in the original branding. And the damages that can be claimed in the case of tarnishing of goodwill will be a lot higher than blurring of the goodwill. Blurring is somewhat subtle difference, but if one would look at it carefully, could be able to differentiate. So blurring is in that sense slightly less of a cause for damages. Um, okay. The likelihood of expansion of the product lines, meaning that it would impact production by, there is basically what it's saying is the sales can be impacted, or something that is causing financial damage by reduction of sales or marketability of that product. So all these factors are to be determined by the court uh, to give a verdict in the favor of the plaintiff. Okay. Types of trademark infringement. There is type squatting, cyber squatting, page jacking, linking and framing we've done already. But type squatting, now this is to do with the domain name. Say linking is the same, except that the domain name is what is highlighted here. Framing again is the domain name that is infringed when you are asking somebody, or if you've got something displayed within the frames that is taking you to another domain. So it is actually a duplication. But more important is type squatting, cyber squatting, and page checking. So let me type squatting is really when you type something or you buy a domain which looks similar, or which can be confused, and where the user cannot differentiate. Remember, I told you how some of the subdomains are set, or the pattern in which the subdomains are to be included or to be connected to the main domain. So it is actually identified with the actual owner of that domain. So there was this example I gave you for Yahoo. Remember, mail.yahoo.com is correct, but .mail.com is incorrect. And you can get all these domains with naming them differently or even with slight change in the wordings that could be confusing. So that is type squatting. Cyber squatting is when you are buying domain names of famous brands, and just with the idea that you have the ownership of it, and later on you can sell it to the buyers who could pay more price for it. So you are basically gathering or buying all those famous domains. That's cyber squatting. Page jacking is when you have seen in the links, you see how when you click on it, it does show the domain and everything else is there, except that when you click on it, you see that you are not taken to the right page. And I'll show you how the page jacking, let me just go to the book itself. I don't know if we have the examples or not, but let's see. Where are we with this? Page jacking, page jacking. Oh, this is the wrong one. Sorry. No, this is the one. Because in the slides, we don't have any examples. That's why I just want to. Page jacking is when you are simulating or making the look and feel of that site or that page to appear as if it belongs to the original domain holder, like PayPal, for instance. So whenever you see some phishing or something that is asking you to click on a link that appears to be PayPal link uh, from how it is written, because it is hiding the actual link itself, which is different, but makes it appear as if it is paypal.com. It is masking the original link. You can do that. It is possible to do that. But when you click on it and you're on the actual page, you should observe at the top what the domain name or the final domain name is shown. And then what happens with page jacking is that the page itself is going to appear and simulate as if it is the original website of a bank or a financial institution or a gateway like PayPal and so on. Linking, again, we have done linking and framing. So these cyber squatting, page jacking, and type squatting. This is what you have to know what they mean. Trademark dilution. When trademark dilution happen, it could be something called blurring, or it could be tarnishing. Blurring happens when the power of mark is weakened through its identification with dissimilar codes, which is, like I said, is something confusing, but not exactly a low quality stuff, but basically something which looks similar but is not the same. Um, in terms of quality, when the quality is compromised and intentionally something is copied with a slight difference, the color and the logo looking somewhat similar, and then when you actually start to use it, you find that it is a very low quality product. So it is tarnishing or outright tarnishing the goodwill. That's a trademark dilution, and it's very hard to compute or to file a claim for dilution. You have to prove as a plaintiff the value or what could be the impact or what could be the compensation or the rightful compensation. Because it could be punitive damages also, it could be a goodwill valuation also that is difficult to establish. Right? The defamation act of harming the reputation of another by making a false statement to another person. The act of defamation may be false written or oral statement. Now, defamation could be intentional or unintentional, but what if it is a fact or a truth that is exposed? And in that sense, would the defendant or someone who is defamed be able to claim a reputation tarnishing or claiming reputation damage based on something which is a fact about that person? Would that be part of defamation or not? There is this element of establishing whether that information should be considered private, privileged, or extremely personal. Because the privacy laws pretty much has covered a lot of grounds on what is considered privacy in private and what is private spaces. What is the So there is this complication there. So defamation would have to be established on account of what is the information that sometimes is real information or truth about something, but it is exposed or it is brought to the public knowledge. So that is debatable, and that takes us to another area, which is to do with the privacy or privacy rights of individuals. Okay. However, in defamation, there are two types of defamations. One is something that is written or is published, or is not only published but is brought to the public knowledge, and there is an element or cause for um, uh, compromising or for reputation, being compromised, let's say. So these elements are some of the things that one has to consider when you're trying to look for filing something like libel. Libel is written statement. Let me just double. Libel refers to written defamatory statement. So there is a test to libel. One, the defendant published a defamatory statement. That means it is published for the public view, or even if it is published to in any way that is being seen. If the publishing of something is not viewed by anyone, or it for some reason it did not uh, have the eyeballs to look at, and it is private and it is not viewed by anyone, it's not going to cause or can be a cause for libel. Okay. Second thing is okay, so it covers this, and the other people were exposed to that statement. So publishing it and exposing it or making it available, that is libel. Then we've got slander, which is when you talk about someone that or you spread a rumor or you share some information, verbally. There are two types of slander: slander and slander per se. In the first kind, the plaintiff must prove the defendant made a defamatory statement to at least one other person. So there has to be one more at least one listener about that. Because the idea of slander is that it is not contained, meaning that if the word is out and it is um, or a fact or information is given to one person, there is a likelihood that it will travel to others and it would have an exponential effect. Twitter retweeting something that is false is also sometimes it is libel, but it has an element of slander to it as well because somebody heard it. It's a hearsay. Okay. And that the plaintiff suffered what is referred to as special damages. Very hard to prove damages. The word special damages are used in slander because we don't know the extent of damage it has caused, or physically it cannot be proven as how many people heard it, or who exposed that, or who actually transformed that information and restated those facts or those statements in a different way, or they phrased it differently. So the idea got changed. As a result of the defamation, okay, special damages are actually harm, loss of customers, being fired, or some other financial harm. So the second thing about special damages is that you have to prove the harm, meaning that it needs to be translated, or it has to be quantified in terms of financial impact. That could be, it cannot be, slander cannot be that information got out and the effect of that was that, it was something people discussed and nothing bad happened, or it did not impact anything, like even a contract. Let's say if somebody was under a contract and they heard a rumor, that may be true or not, doesn't matter, but as long as that impacted the renewal of a contract for someone, it could be anything, any kind of contract, that is a cause for establishing damages and a cause to file for slander. Okay. So online defamation can be caused through websites, blogs, and forums. So one has to be careful, especially if it is a personality or a person that is well known or is, on in the board of directors and would impact its functioning or staying as a member. Could be different things, but just the fact that information was collected online from social media, even through forums or chats, that might be a cause for online defamation. Emailing could be one, sending it out, especially bulk emailing, social media, in anyway, intranets, never mind intranets, it's just private connectivity that, or a communication network that is actually connected into a group. Could be a business, could be a special group of people that is using intranets or exclusive connectivity or dedicated communications. In establishing case of defamation, these elements are important. This is important for the exam. How do you establish a case of defamation? Number one is, now this is in the general sense, not just libel and slander, but generally it is three elements. One is publication to one other than the person defamed, a false statement of facts. So, like I said, the real statement of facts that is in the that is in the private space or considered private is not inclusive, is not included in that. A false statement of fact is, okay, that is understood as being of and concerned concerning the plaintiff, intending to harm the reputation of the plaintiff. If the plaintiff is a public figure, he or she must also prove actual malice. So malice is just the way in which intent is translated by the court, because at all times court looks at the intent of someone who may have intentionally or unintentionally caused a harm. The liability of unintentional act would be far less than the one that is done through a scheme, or that is, you know, is actually done by intent to harm someone by design. So those two are different. Spamming, it's all listed here. What are different types of spamming? Spamming as a word itself, we are all familiar with it. We know how spamming happens every day in our email account. Different types of spamming, phishing schemes, advanced bank payments, pyramid schemes. These are just listed here as some of the ways people do spamming, but it is not something that I've seen in the exams. Types of cyber crimes. Cybercrime means that anything that you do on the internet, which is an activity considered to be illegal or harmful to the society, or is not something that is allowed uh, by the governments, or in certain countries, certain type of information or certain display or certain type of information display is considered as sensitive material. So that can be a cause for putting it under the in the law as having a um, criminal liability. The way we understand it in North America is actually well laid out, and it is, the entire law, which is beyond, or which gives rise to being prosecuted as a crime versus as a civilian liability claim. So, in the cybercrime area, we've got two types of cyber crimes. We call them active and passive type. An active is committed using a computer directly. Example is illegally, it is like hacking basically. You are actually proactively trying to break into the sensitive material, data files, private material, or anything that is considered confidential. Okay. Then you've got passive type of crimes. The law is slightly different for passive crimes, which means that you are not directly or proactively trying to do that, uh, getting involved in the criminal activity, but your hardware or your software or your party to it, or something that is being used, which is your own let's say, hardware or your own communication devices that is used for the crime or for hacking, as an example. That kind of intrusion would be passive, meaning that you have something is actually moving through your own assets or your own equipment. You're responsible for that to that extent. Whereas when we call it passive, that means uh, and you saying that you had no knowledge of it is not a defense. So you have to be extremely careful about it. Internet piracy, cyber terrorism, identity theft, we all know all of this. So you can read through it, but it is not something that we have to explain or we be worried about. Um, E-commerce, B2B, business to business, business to consumer. So these are all activities that we do online. Business to business is type of e-commerce, business to consumer, customer to customer, customer to business. These are just terminologies, nothing else. What is important in this area is the electronic contracts. So key elements of the contract. See, contract law hasn't changed much over the years or over the ages, I would say. Whatever is the basic elements to make it into a contract that is actually executable contract, and is has all the elements to make it a valid contract, is going to be considered as having the same characteristics and same attributes and same obligations and rules, even if you do it electronically by exchanging files or by uh, mm, communicating certain type of documents which can be considered contracts. The three elements which are basic to any contracts, again, uh, and these are three of them, which is fundamentals. One is offer. There has to be a clear offer of something for something, or in the case of offers, it has to have a kind of a commitment to deliver something. Uh, so there has to be an offer to deliver something. Then there has to be from the other party uh, who is to accept that offer has to be clearly accepting that offer, which means accepting the offer in clear words. And in between offer and acceptance, there has to be a consideration which should be a benefit. It can even be a contract with a barter where you're exchanging goods. But in the spirit of how the contracts are executed, it has to have a financial value, or there has to be a transaction or benefit in exchange of offer and acceptance between the two parties. So that there we call that consideration. So all three elements has to be there in, even if it is a virtual contract. Now, there are two types of contracts we get to see online, especially in e-commerce. One we call click wrap contract agreement. Click wrap is a small checkbox where you have to click on it to accept it before you can go to the next screen. In other words, you have to accept the terms and conditions of something which is going to be leading you to have access or privilege to exercise uh, uh, any sort of let's say acceptance of um, goods or services, which we call the shopping cart, or something that you put in the shopping cart. That has to have a certain uh, acceptance from you by clicking on the checkbox, like you accept to buy the good, you accept to buy it at a certain price. Then there would be other terms and conditions as well. So unless you check, if you put a check mark there, it won't take you to the next level. Um, that's called click wrap agreements. And we are not attorneys. We don't know a lot about the legal issues or legalities that are written in the fine prints, but it is always a good idea to click on the agreement just to look at some of the return policies, for instance. Some ways in which the payments can be claimed or RMS can be executed. So all those are part of the click agreements. Um, it is, and then we've got browse wrap agreements, which means that it is a wrap of terms and conditions, including privacy policies and certain other ways in which the site protects themselves by adding disclaimers and so on. Just the fact that you are on somebody's website means that you are given a privilege or given an opportunity to view or to browse on somebody else's property by accepting automatically some of the terms and conditions that is set as being um, being acknowledged and accepted by the user of that site. So those are browse rep agreements. Uh, Email would have the statement at the bottom, a disclaimer or something that says if the email goes, or if it is not intended for you, then please reply or don't use it, this is confidential info, and so on. So those are email electronic little disclaimers at the end. uh, then the question of electronic, I'm going a little bit fast because I just want to finish up the essentials. Then we've got electronic signatures and digital signatures. Okay. Electronics signatures can be different kinds. There could be an encryption, it could be a symbol, or it could be something which is acknowledged or considered as having a unique value or a unique attribute, or something to which you have registered for, or a third party has acknowledged that symbol or that particular encryption as having a uniqueness which would identify it with you as the signatory. So those are electronic signatures. Digital signatures could be anything that you can write and take an image of it and then place it. So it's copy and paste. Those are digital images or electronic signatures. Uh, both are something that can be considered authentic, but in the court of law, situation changes a little bit. Certain type of contracts you cannot be using electronic signatures, like where you are entering into, let's say, a lender's agreement, mortgages, lease of some sort. A lot of documents require witnesses to sign in as well. So in cases like that, you may not be able to use digital signatures. Digital signatures can be acknowledgement of offer letter to somebody to take up a job, something which is simpler, which is not, which is a routine exchange of information, identifying who the sender of that document is. It doesn't have to be a contract. It could be a simple MOU or a simple letter. So that is internal, and that is something which is not disputed or is not considered as having a stronger criteria or higher criteria of physically signing something, as I mentioned in mortgage deeds and so on. So there are these electronic signatures, but a lot of contracts that are legally executable in the court may not allow you to do electronic signatures. The chapter for ethics, it is in the video link that I'm going to send you. This is the only part that you should be able to do. It's nothing very difficult to understand. It has got the ethics means how you are how, how you have to act in terms of um, following uh, some of the I guess I'll just bring that slide for you. Let's just cover it quickly. I'm going to now open up the slide, and it would probably take a few minutes, but I was thinking I could actually do the case laws here. That would have been better. But anyway, you can look them up in the you should be able to look them up in the PDF of the PowerPoints. So just as an example, let me do this. So what happens in the exam you're given in the module 4, you will have maybe something that is given to you as a description of a situation. And you have to answer questions based on this situation. Like this one is for copyrights. The next one would be for link copying, piracy, plagiarism. So these are the areas we are covering: defamation and e-commerce, 6 of them. So if you can just quickly go through these cases individually, you should be well prepared. The copyrights is a pet question. It's usually coming. It's typical. So I think I can just show you what it's talking about. Ethics, I'm going to leave out. You can see it in the lecture I did earlier. It's going to be about 20-30 minutes. Anyway, the copyrights is asking, for instance, Ronald you can read it just as an example. Let's do one. Now, the ones that are highlighted are different choices. So I'm going to get rid of this totally. I don't want color. Okay, so can you just read through. We'll just do one case, copyrights, just to give you an idea. So can you read through this part over here on the left? Okay, Liza is here. Are you reading this part by any chance, Kristen, Randy, Liza, Lisa? Let's
So I'm reading the answers and what are my choices. I've already read the case study.
okay. Okay, Randy, you can let me know when you're done reading. We can get to the questions. Okay, done. So what do you say? What is the copyright infringement issue in this scenario? Photocopying a copyrighted right protected book without the author's permission, professor claiming part of the profit, photocopying for the purpose of I think one is probably a better answer. What do you say? Randy, one. Okay, so Kristen,
One as well.
Liza, into correct. In the second one, I think number 2 is correct. The right to reproduce the work. There is nothing to do with public display, nothing to do with public performance. So, when we are doing copyrights as having the rights for the producer of that intellectual property, we were talking about display, public performance, and all of that. But in this particular case, it was the right to reproduce work that was infringed. Number 3, who is responsible for direct copyright infringement? This can be tricky. Randy says number 2. What say you, Kristen and Eliza?
I can see 2, but I could also make an argument for 3.
Question 3 and 4 is the other way around, right? So the contributory is it the shop owner, or 4, 3 is
The shop owner, your voice is choppy. It's breaking up, Eliza.
the shop owner, is it the contributory, and the direct copyright is the professor?
Yes, the copy shop owner, that should be the correct choice, because you see the university professor has suggested something but has not acted on it, right? If I tell somebody to copy something that is an illegal copy or make an illegal copy, then I may not be direct infringer, but I might have contributed, but not in directly. So it is not direct infringement of the university professor. The copy shop owner who actually did the copies is responsible or would be the direct infringer. Okay. Number 4.
Direct, right?
Who is responsible for contributory infringement?
Number 3, the professor.
Yes, I agree with you. So the university professor is is responsible for contributory infringement, but somewhat, um, see, there is an element of contributory infringement which I don't know if I wasn't able to clarify. Uh, when someone unknowingly copies or makes copies of it of the copyrighted work, um, and would not use due diligence or caution to verify if it is IP protected or if it is given permission to be reproduced unknowingly, that is, somebody is doing it in a naive way. That could be also included as contributory, as a cause for contributory infringement. Okay. In your opinion, can this be qualified as fair use? Because it is for educational purposes, would that be a fair use or something? No. So Randy is correct. It cannot be something, I mean, it is not, because you see, if the student didn't get those copies done on pennies and dimes and had to go and buy the book, okay, that has a commercial value to it. That would definitely make or deprive the author of the money uh, that makes the book as commercially viable for that copyrighted work to get the benefit from. And because he's not getting the benefit, there is no um, element of fair use that is been that is being offered by the author. So there is a commercial value, and it is not something that can be distributed without paying for the actual book. So there is no question of fair use, and therefore the answer is no. Right. So these are the cases, and then we have a case of link copying, piracy, and all of that. This you may be able to do on your own. And it's not difficult to do. I mean, these are very simple cases. I don't see the complexity which otherwise you would find in case laws. The actual way in which the decisions are given, or how something is contested in these areas. So these are very extremely simplified. So you won't have a problem, and we've covered everything. We've covered defamation, inline linking, privacy, and all of that. So it will be easy for you to practice on. And there would not be any other case laws except these ones. This I know for a fact. So 6 of these is what you'll have to look for. And now I'm going to get that recording, which is from batch 1190. And it is the last one. See this one. This will cover if anything is left out in internet law, and cover the entire subject of ethics. So I'm going to have to send you this as a link. And the subject of ethics of internet search is covered in the last 20 minutes of this recording. So let me put I'll just give you an outline of what ethics is about. Ethics is your, moral obligations, your own personal thinking, or your personal choices you make in society or in your behavior to protect someone else's rights, or where you have to be considerate in terms of, um, you know, uh, giving a lot of thought to somebody else's privacies. Um, what you have to do, or how you would obtain the information from someone. You have to follow certain ethics. Ethics may also include some of the values that are taught, uh, from the society itself, or depending on your upbringing, or depending on your areas, or geographic, um, I guess, mm, socio-economic situations that is um, going to give you those values. One of them could be, courtesy, empathy, not harming someone's interest, not intentionally spreading misinformation. Um, when it comes to collection of information, you're going to be extra careful to understand that you have to be cautious about some private information that should not be displayed. Anonymity when it is um, expected from where you're obtaining the sample, or you're obtaining your service from. uh, that could be something. Your sources of information, if you're a journalist, if they want to stay anonymous, you have to uh, be able to oblige them by maintaining that anonymity. How you would use that information that you have collected, that is informed, or the subject, if it is a human subject, you need to get a consent from them, and you have to give them in writing, or explain to them where that data is going to be used, what is going to be the impact of that research, whether that information is something that would highlight the name or identify you with that subject, with that particular set of information. So you have to follow that. Then there is matters like is explained here as examples. How important is participants' privacy, confidentiality, and anonymity? I just explained that. How about Googling clients? Should you, like, if it is clients' information that could be also includes something of personal nature displayed in social media sites, and that information is not actually meant for you to be using to make decisions on that individual, could be hiring that individual, or getting into contract with that individual, even though it is a private information, and you tap into that, and that could impact your decisions as someone who uses that information to, for whatever reasons, for hiring, and as I said. So you may want to question yourself whether, if you didn't get the permission to use it, or whether or not, if you're going to be biased by looking at, let's say, some of the political views of someone that is highlighted in the social media account, especially in its private account. Somehow you get into it. Would that be something that would influence your decision, or would actually nurture your bias, uh, and so on? So it is a matter of ethics. If you're doing virtual interviews, or if it is a virtual focus group, you have to have a moderator, someone who is a third eye to what is being discussed, and how the perception might be, if the bias is something that would impact the research or collection, or the line of questions that you're going to adopt in that focus group. So there could be a moderator to neutralize that. That would actually be covering a lot of ground in terms of ethics of obtaining that information. What is the role of AI, artificial intelligence? Because it is a mechanical process, privacy is something that is no longer a privilege, that the artificial intelligence would be able to, make decisions on its own. It may be able to interpret certain data, which may require a human intelligence, and there could be an element of feelings, element of, how the reaction of somebody is, especially in interviews. But if it is an interview that is done through AI, then the results might be different because there is no human element to it, and it cannot interpret certain things, and it is too mechanical, and so on. How about spreading news and shares with social media and Twitter? To what level you should contain yourself and be responsible to before you retweet something? Would you be verifying that fact? Uh, would you be retweeting um, uh, uh, to a group of people that may directly or indirectly impact uh, the decision, or anything that would impact an individual or a society, or would change, or with the information which is not confirmed, it would change somebody's ideas or minds? That would be a moral responsibility. A lot of journalists carry that responsibility. Line between ethics of content sensitivity, socioeconomic, Islamophobia as an example. How about writing reviews, opinions, blogs, articles? To what extent you would be responsible for writing and about something which is not biased, or which is not based on your personal views, but rather a more of a rationale plays a part. You are collecting facts before you actually start to put those ideas or those writings in the digital formats and uploading it. Um, Plagiarism. How about forming a bias or influencing public opinion, and so on? So these are the questions that sort of test your morals of judgment in situations that might impact somebody else in a good way or a bad way, doesn't matter. But uh, the fact that it impacts others, or it has an effect on others, might be something that you should consider a question of ethics. There is no fixed guideline, so to tell you, that is going to regulate the ethics or ethical issues, um, which may be somewhat only um, meant for writers or someone who is specific to to a profession. The only ethical guidelines are um, implemented, or you could say that are a reference value that comes from organizations that you attach with as a professional. So if it is you're an engineer, then the engineering councils would have some of the ethics built into your membership, as having some of the rules of conduct that is part of your that has a lot of elements of ethics. Association of Internet Research Specialists, if you are a certified member, then these are some of the ethics which is listed. So and sometimes what is considered ethical by one person may be different in terms of ideas and in terms of perception by somebody else. So there could be a lot of debate there. Some of the sensitive issues that can be controversial at times uh, would be uh, would be mm, can be maybe uh, may have an override or something which is held under the blanket of ethics. So, issues about abortion, your opinions, you don't want to just give out your opinions to the general public just because you have a strong feeling about one idea versus another. So what is ethical for one person may not be ethical for another. So there is always a controversy when the subject of ethics is discussed. But where the research is concerned, a researcher must look at human subject as having something to do with ethics that you have to follow. The way you collect or data procurement, maintaining integrity of data, verification of information is an ethical responsibility of a researcher. Um, Using artificial intelligence versus personal judgment could be a matter of ethics. So there could be so many different ways in which ethics play a part, but at the very end, it is your own um, way of expressing concerns and not, having the intent to follow certain norms of the society, which sort of dictates what is ethical and what is not. So, with this subject of ethics, you would find few more ideas besides what I just discussed in the video, and you can do that later on when you have time. But for now, I would have to say goodbye to you, especially three of you have been consistent and you've attended all the classes, and I sincerely hope that it was a knowledge that you seeked and the purpose of your taking the course is well served. We did put in a lot of hours and there was a lot of commitments, uh, especially from your end. So that is really appreciated. So, in order for me to be in touch with you, I would say that if you have any questions specifically for passing the CIRS exam, do feel free to contact me through the email or just leave me a quick message and I will get back to you. No matter what, our most important reason for the entire course is to ensure that more people are certified and that from the course you took with me, as many of my students pass CIRS exam, it sort of delivers the main objective of all these lectures. So, having said this, if there's anything that I can answer for you, thank you. Thank you so much, every one of you. Take care of yourself, stay healthy. COVID is still around, and let's see where we meet next. Take care now. Bye bye, and thanks again.
I
Bye
thank
bye.
you.
Thank you.